Hello, everybody, and welcome to season 2 of every episode of Bob's Burgers Review. So, today we're going to be going through the second season of Bob's Burgers, which is the shortest, and we're going to give every episode in season 2 a review. This is just like season 1 of Bob's Burgers. Nothing has really changed, so let's get on with it. Season 2, Episode 1. The Belchies. Louise leads the kids in an abandoned taffy factory to find a treasure. Well, for starters, this episode's side plot, Bob and Linda wanting to have a wild sex night, proves that Bob's Burgers is not for kids. So you see that little fun fact or random thought in the corner over there? Listen up, parents. Bob's Burgers is for adults. So I'm not going to change it and make it more kid-friendly because you shoved an iPad in your kid's face, told them to go on YouTube, and then got upset with the content that they found. Bob's Burgers is for adults, and if I find a quote or a scene or something that I find funny that has a cuss or an R-rated part in it, I'm going to include it. Okay, enough with that little rant. Let's get on with the actual episode. This episode is honestly a really nice Belcher sibling story. It's cute to see how Louise thinks she doesn't need Tina and Jean and abandons them, but realizes she does actually need them. This is also one of the Bob's Burgers episodes I've seen a lot of times, but it's just so darn good that you don't really care how many times you've seen it. It's a great episode. Season 2, Episode 2. Bob Day Afternoon. Bob ends up as a hostage while trying to make a delivery to a bank robbery. It looks like we're starting Season 2 off really nicely, because this is one of the most hilarious episodes of Bob's Burgers yet. Also, it's pretty weird how that hostage situation actually looked fun. I mean, Mickey was actually a funny character, despite the fact that he was supposed to be a criminal, and the rest of the characters were absolutely hilarious. I love Louise screaming, "It's my daddy," while trying to talk to the bank robber, wanting to write a report on him. And I also especially love the family trying to stop Bob from leaving, all grabbing onto him and begging him not to go, while Bob tries to get them off of him. For twice in a row, it's a great episode. Season 2, Episode 3. Synchronized Swimming. The kids trick Linda into thinking she's teaching them synchronized swimming in order to get out of PE class. Honestly, this is probably one of the more relatable episodes of Bob's Burgers. Granted, I don't hate gym class as much as I've seen other people hate gym class, but I think I'd much rather go swimming in a pool than have to play hockey, run the track. I did like playing volleyball, however. Also, I wonder if the scene where Teddy eats a sponge, were they trying to make a SpongeBob reference, or was that just random? And lastly, this episode started off kinda slow, but did get better. But to me, it still is an okay episode. Season 2, Episode 4, Burger Boss. Bob becomes obsessed with an arcade game. For starters, that Burger Boss game actually does look pretty fun. I play it actually. Although, I think somebody made a computer version of it. I'm talking actually for a console, like the Switch. Although I don't think that would be possible because it is just a cartoon-made video game. Although, how come Bob's Burgers doesn't have an official video game yet? I would so play the heck out of that. Yes, I'm aware that there's a Bob's Burgers pinball game, but I don't think that I'm gonna drop 99 cents to play a pinball version that just has Bob's Burgers characters. But an official Bob's Burgers game, I would definitely download that for my Switch. Well, this episode's storyline is interesting. Bob becomes obsessed with a video game and Linda has it removed. And I also really love Linda singing to her porcelain babies, as well as Jean pulling down the robot's pants and then screaming. That part I found really funny too. But One thing I have to say about this episode is, why is Bob always the bad guy? I mean, he would have been perfectly fine if Jimmy Pesto didn't come in and write Bob sucks on the leaderboard. And of course, all the blame has to go with Bob. I mean, yeah, to give Linda credit, he did kind of go crazy when it went at the captain's club, and he did tell her that he was taking sailing lessons when he was actually lying and going to play the video game, but I don't know. I don't see why Bob always has to be the bad guy. Overall, today's episode was, well, okay. Season 2, Episode 5, Food Trucking. The Belchers all end up in trouble at a festival after turning Bob's Burgers into a food truck. It's pretty ironic how I was complaining about Bob being the bad guy in the latest episode, where in this episode, I think he was being pretty unfair. I mean, I would absolutely love it if a bunch of food trucks just showed up into my area. That would be paradise to me. Well, as long as the people cook the food properly. Although, even if Bob is a little unfair in this episode, it still is a really enjoyable, good episode. And that song at the end of this episode was really weird. Season 2, Episode 6, Dr. Yap. After being on nitrous oxide, I think that's how you pronounce it, Bob believes that Gail is Linda and kisses her. This is a pretty entertaining episode. I do enjoy Gene and Louise's little side plot with their jawbreaker competition and all the different creative ways they try and determine who gets to have the jawbreaker. I also really enjoyed Tina having a crush on Dr. Yap. Like, it's perfectly normal to have a crush on your dentist and draw her naked. Even though she did that in season 1, it still is relevant, I guess. But the only thing I have to say negatively about this episode is the Bob torture does last a bit too long. And he really doesn't do anything wrong. If anything, he was just doing what Linda told him. As of Linda, I wish she was on Bob's side more. You know, instead of smacking him and hurting his tooth more, we could have heard her go, "Oh, my sister's crazy. Bob was drugged up. It's not his fault. He thought she was me. Oh, my crazy sister, I tell ya." I mean, if anything, it does prove that Linda is a good sister to Gail, but I just don't think Bob truly deserved to get his tooth hurt like that. Oh well, you can't let little things like that ruin an episode of you. I mean, if you disliked every episode of Tom and Jerry where Tom gets hurt, you'd like 0 episodes of the show. Overall, I thought this was a good episode. Season 2, Episode 7, Moody Foodie. Bob is outraged when a food critic gives him a bad review. Not only is this one of the funniest episodes of Bob's Burgers yet, but probably one of the most truthful. I mean, it's so hard to like something you like after seeing nothing but criticism of it. For example, I honestly enjoy the minions from Despicable Me. Hey, calm down, people. It's called an opinion. Ever hear of one of those before? Of course not. Opinions on the internet? Honestly, this just proves how true this moral is. It is a little hard to enjoy the minions after seeing everybody bash them. Although I would say they haven't been as funny since the second movie, and it is pretty hard to give characters who don't speak their own movie. But this isn't every episode of every Despicable Me movie reviewed. This is every episode of Bob's Burgers reviewed. As of the episode, well, like I just said, it is one of the funniest episodes of the show. It's both relatable and hilarious. And I guess if I do have to say one thing about this episode, I mean, yeah, breaking and entering is a crime, but to be fair, that guy did tease Bob, and I could definitely see why everyone was getting mad. But overall, this is honestly one of the best Bob's Burgers in the entire series. It's a classic, good episode. Season 2, Episode 8, Bad Tina. Tina spends time with the new mean girl at school, Tammy. Believe it or not, this is actually only the second episode of Bob's Burgers I ever saw. And honestly, it's a really good first impression. Or rather, second impression. to the show. I love Bob's obsession with the patty cake show and how he wanted the cake with everybody he saw. And I especially love Gene and Louise being supportive of Tina and basically wanting to take Tammy down for humiliating their big sister. Also, Linda's quote just proves why she's one of my favorite characters. A classic, good episode of Bob's Burgers. Season 2, Episode 9, Beef Squatch. After Gene steals Bob's spotlight on the cooking segment of a morning show, the host uses this to his advantage. Well, being someone who's more of a fan of sibling relationships, I'm not exactly that fond of a father-son relationship. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the father-son episode, but they just don't interest me as much as, let's say, Tina and Gene episode would, or Louise or Tina, or, well, you know what I mean. But even if I don't find it as interesting as sibling episodes, I do enjoy Bob and Gene's dynamic in this episode. It's sweet. Also, Linda deserves a parenting award right here, showing the world her breasts, that way she can save the relationship between her husband and her son. And I'm not gonna lie, I loved Hugo constantly hitting the DVR button knowing that his ex-wife's boobs are being shown on or ex-fiance's boobs are being shown on the television. And this episode proves that not only is Linda hilarious, but she's a very great wife and mother who would do anything for her family, which only basically confirms that she's my favorite character. Overall, I have to say, this is a good episode. Maybe it's a bit more of a boring good, but it's a good all the same. And that was every episode of Bob's Burgers Season 2 reviewed. Well, this is definitely the shortest season of Bob's Burgers, and it definitely shows that the show was still trying to find its stitch. Now, onto the example of each rating. For this season's okay, I picked synchronized swimming. Yes, it's relatable. Yes, it has funny moments, just like every episode of Bob's Burgers does. But, I don't know. It just didn't interest me as much as this season would. Again, an okay episode doesn't mean a bad episode, but just not one that interests me that much. For the good of season 2, Bad Tina. That's pretty ironic. The good has the word bad in the name. Yes, I know, I really seemed to praise the episode before that, Moody Foodie, but to me, Bad Tina is just a classic episode of Bob's Burgers. And it is only the second episode I watched, so it is right in the beginning for me. I have to say, it's a very enjoyable, funny, sweet episode of Bob's Burgers. It's basically anything you could come to expect from a Bob's Burgers episode. And finally, my favorite episode of Season 2, Bob Day Afternoon. This episode is hilarious through beginning through end, and makes something so scary like a hostage situation actually pretty funny. It's the episode that gave us the iconic line, "It's my daddy!" Every single belcher was amazing in this episode. So, that's why I consider Bob Day Afternoon to be the best episode of Bob's Burgers. And overall, this season was a good season. And we'll see you guys next time when we review Season 3.